This video was made possible thanks to generous donations from my lovely supporters on Patreon. Hi guys, it's Sonia and welcome to my YouTube channel. So if you've been watching my last video, then you know that this past April I've dealt with some heavy things in my private life, and I had a heavy episode of depression, and the way I chose to deal with that depression is that I set myself a goal that I wanted to look at less screens and more beautiful landscapes. I've talked about dealing with those issues by riding my bike the entire day, riding as much as I can, as far away as I can, usually through countrysides and old roads and sometimes even fields and forests that are far out of town. But my absolute favorite place to ride my bike is next to Sava River, which passes through my town. And one thing that I mentioned that you're actually gonna have to be ready to deal with if you decide to do what I'm doing is to be ready for the fact that you're gonna meet a lot of stray dogs and they might try to attack you. On my daily bike ride, I meet at least 5 stray dogs. There is actually a factory out of town which is on my way, and there is actually a lot of stray dogs there. And I've talked to the person who works at the gates, like, they don't have owners, but they do feed them. So usually they would attack people who are passing by, and the guard would actually have to go out and try to stop them, which is kind of impossible because there's like 6 of them. And then once you pass by that factory, there are a lot of summer cottages and a lot of dogs who are not necessarily stray dogs. Like, they're usually dogs which serve as like the guards of those summer cottages, but because they are summer cottages, the owners are usually not there 24/7, and usually those cottages don't really have a yard or a gate, or the gate is very weak and the dog can easily slide underneath, and they very often attack people who are passing by that area, especially those who are on their bicycle. I've also talked about this in my last video, but if a stray dog attacks you, you're not supposed to start running even faster because the dog is gonna continue to chase you and they're just gonna become more aggressive. You need to stop, get off your bike and walk slowly by them, and most dogs will leave you alone. And you don't have to do this, but I do this. I try to stop and talk to them and cuddle them. If I have any food on me, I will give them food or water and try to befriend them, because if I'm passing through that area a lot, I need them to get used to me so I don't have to get off my bike every single time, and so that they wouldn't attack me. So it's also for my own safety. Most of the clips that I will be showing you today will be wholesome clips of me cuddling them and feeding them, but just remember that this is not how those interactions started. Most of them very aggressively, attacked me, and I had to befriend them like throughout the period of a couple of weeks. But they do eventually, if you're feeding them and cuddling them, they do turn into these big cuddly, like balls of love, because dogs don't attack humans because they hate us. They attack us because they're scared of us, and they're scared of us for a good reason, because some humans do horrible things. And they are usually aggressive because they already experienced the violence by some other human. So when I ride my bike, there is a village which is on my routine called Tabanović in Serbia, and in order to get to the Sava River, you have to pass by this little road that passes through like this forest that has a lot of trees and a lot of bushes. And in April, when I was passing through that area for the first time, I was attacked by 2 dogs. One big white dog and one small yellow dog. And they jumped out of the bushes so fast, and I was riding my bike so fast as well that I couldn't hit the brakes because I would be literally falling on my face. So I did the thing that I was not supposed to be doing. I started driving faster, and eventually, they did try to like catch me and became more aggressive, but eventually I did manage to like escape because I've been doing this for over a decade. And this place, like this forest, is like horrible. It's like a wild dumping ground, and because it's out of town, a lot of people come there to like throw trash, or especially illegal trash, like for example, animal corpses. So while some of these videos might be wholesome, just remember that everything stinks of animal corpses. The second time that I was passing through that area, I remembered that there are dogs there, so I stopped, I got off my bike, I was passing by very slowly, and I saw them and they were barking at me again, but because I wasn't chasing on my bike, they weren't chasing me. In fact, they were barking at me aggressively, but like walking backwards, because I repeat, dogs attack humans because they're scared of us. And the third time I actually passed by this area, I saw the corpse of the white dog in the bushes by the road. A car must have hit him, and then somebody must have picked him up and thrown him into the bushes. And the yellow dog was like barking at me, but the bark was different, you know. She wasn't barking at me aggressively. I could feel the shiver in her bark, and I could tell that she was shivering and she was very scared. It was very, very sad, and I felt so sorry for her. First of all, she was a stray dog, and she was probably hungry and thirsty and full of parasites. Second of all, she was in this like wild dumping ground that was full of like smelly, disgusting animal corpses, and somebody probably threw her out there like she's trash too. And third of all, the only thing that she had, her best friend, was killed, and she was just so scared, and I could tell. I tried to call her to see if she would approach me, if I could cuddle her and, you know, comfort her a little bit, but she wouldn't come near me. So I did what I had to do. I came back tomorrow with lots of food. I took some dog food, and I took a bowl, and I took a bottle of water to pour it into the bowl, and I drove my bike for like 10 kilometers, which is like 6 miles, from my home to the forest where she was, determined to befriend her. When I arrived there, I showed her that I had like food, and she was like interested, but she still wouldn't approach me. She was just way too scared. She was on this like pile of concrete, and I would put the food onto that pile and then try to step away and distance myself and see if she would approach the food. And she did. She started eating, and once she finished her meal, I tried to approach slowly again to try to cuddle her, and this time she allowed me to pet her. The moment I approached close to her and I started petting her, I noticed that she was like full of chigo, and she had like gigantic chigo on her forehead. And it was just so sad all around. As I said, I pet a lot of stray dogs, but I try to keep myself emotionally distanced because I know that I cannot take them home with me and give them a home, because I already have 4 dogs, so bringing a 5th dog into the household, I don't think that would be possible. And I think my family would probably kill me. But this dog was just so different. She was so cuddly and so good and so sweet, and she was so scared. I mean, I just fell in love. So it became a love affair. I was coming there every single day, like 10 kilometers from my home to that forest, to give her food and to give her water in the morning, and then again in the evening to give her more water. The more time I spent with her, it was more sad for me to watch the gigantic chigo on her forehead, and I knew that I had to do something, and I had to buy her like an anti-parasite cream or something like that. So a couple of days later, when I got paid off for a job that I did, the first thing that I did was I went to the vets to buy her some anti-parasite cream. Unfortunately, it was the day after Labor Day, and in Serbia, May 1st and May 2nd are national holidays and nothing works at those days. And on top of it all, it was a Sunday.
Fuck is a Sunday.
So as we have like a common saying in Serbian, I kissed the door. So that day I went back to my village to take the food and then went back to her forest 10 more kilometers to feed her and pet her and give her water. And I came back and I was just so exhausted that the next day I just didn't have the strength to go and do it all again. On May 4th though, I finally managed to buy her some parasite protection cream. It's like a cream that you put on the neck of the dog, like on the back of the neck, so that the dog cannot lick it, and you're supposed to let it dry for 48 hours, and then the skin, I guess, takes into itself all the like poison for parasites, and then once parasites bite into her skin, they're supposed to like be killed. And the ones that were already in her skin should have died off. That did not happen. She had like really big chigo, which were like plumped. But then after a couple of days, because of the poison, I guess, they like shrinked like raisins and became dry. And it was very easy to like pick them off of her fur. So I was sitting there on the cold, hard ground, 6 miles from home, picking off chigo off of a stray dog and thinking to myself, what is my life, honestly? But it was all worth it because she was finally parasite free and I finally felt comfortable picking her up and holding her in my arms and petting her and comforting her the way she deserved. I usually give like all stray dogs names so that I can talk to them easily, which I know sounds crazy when I say it like this, but for me it works. It's just easier to communicate with them and to connect with them. So this dog was like tiny and yellow, and you know, I called her Sunčica, which like roughly translates to English as like maybe sunflower. I remember when I was a kid there was a TV show called Princess Starla and the Jewel Riders, and she had a unicorn whose name was Sunstar, and they translated it to Serbian as Sunčica. So, you know, Sunčica would translate to roughly to English as like sunflower, sunstar, something like that. Like basically it was about the sun because she's like tiny and yellow, and you know. When I come to the forest, I would call her name and she would just jump out of the bushes to say hello. Sunčice! Pa gde si malo? Pa gde mu je malo sitno? Pa gde mu je malo sitno? Hoćemo da jedemo? Ajde da jedemo. Slowly, the goodbyes started being heavier and harder to handle. The idea that I had to leave her there, in that forest, full of trash, in these like disgusting animal corpses, and then I had to like scare her away, to like get away from me so that she wouldn't follow me and, you know, go to the village where there are cars that might run her over. It was all just breaking my heart. On May 10th, I actually had to go to Belgrade to visit a friend for their birthday, and I was there for 2 days. So I was there Monday and Tuesday. And as much as I enjoyed the company of my friend and like having fun with them, I couldn't have so much fun because the one thing that I kept thinking about was how cold Sunčica had to be in that forest, and how lonely she must be, and how hungry she must be, and how she's probably wondering, where am I? Why am I not bringing her food? And I just felt bad. For some reason, I didn't go to see her Wednesday either, because I was either sick, I think, or it was raining so I couldn't ride my bike. I don't have a car. So I didn't see her for like 4 days. So from Sunday evening to Thursday evening. And on Thursday, I finally got to see her. As usual, I would call her and she would jump out of the bushes to come say hi. Sončice! Pa gdje moja ljubav? Pa gdje moja ljubav najveća? Ajde da jedemo. Ajde da jedemo. And I was looking at her and I had to finally face the fact that I cannot give her a home and I cannot take care of her anymore. It's just not realistic for me to adopt her. I can't bring a 5th dog into the household, and once I start performing again and making money and I decide to move somewhere, like, who's gonna rent an apartment to a person with 5 dogs? So, you know, I did what I had to do and I posted her to all my social media. I posted her to my Twitter, I posted her to my Instagram, and then I shared the post on my stories, and then other people reshared it. I posted a description where she is, where they can find her, that she's clean from parasites, that I've been feeding her every single day for the past like almost a month at this point, that if you live somewhere, you know, around Shabbat, like in any of the villages around where I can get by bike, you know, I'm gonna go there and I'm gonna take her and I'm gonna deliver her to your door as long as I can get there by bike. I've been posting her for like a week straight, and finally on May 20th, a girl wrote to me in my DMs on Instagram in Serbian, "Hey Sonia, I had just seen Sunčica and I fell in love. Is she still available for adoption? Thank you." And I responded in Serbian, "No, nobody has adopted her yet. Yes, she's still available for adoption. Would you like to adopt her?" And this girl responded to some story about how she lives in Austria, but she's from Belgrade and she intends to come visit Belgrade, and she's coming in like 2 weeks and she needs to arrange things, you know, for her friends to come to Shabbat to pick her up and then take care of her for 2 weeks until she comes, and she's gonna write to me as soon as she, you know, arranges everything. Tomorrow she finally responded that everything is arranged and that I can go pick her up. I have never felt so freaking happy in my life. As I said, as much as I enjoyed her company and cuddling her and everything, the goodbyes became very painful when I would have to scare her off. So this time, I couldn't wait to get there and, you know, feed her and cuddle her and see that look on her face when she realizes that I'm taking her home with me this time. I found a home for her. I went to the store, I bought a raincoat because it was like pouring rain outside, and I took my bike and I went there to pick her up. As always, I would call her name and she would jump out of the bushes, ready to play with me. Sončice! Gde si ljubavi? Gde si ljubavi? Ajde da jedemo. Našla sam ti dom! Našla sam ti dom! Ideš u Beograd da živiš. I was starting to think about how I was gonna transport her. Thank God she was very, very tiny and she fit right into my backpack, and I put her on my back and I unzipped it enough so that she can poke her head out, so that she can breathe and that she can look where we are going. When we arrived, she was very scared and very confused. She was looking at me like, "Where did you bring me?" And she was mostly scared of Stella, my other dog. My other 3 dogs were actually in a different room because they are countryside dogs, and you know, they've spent their whole life in a yard by themselves we don't walk dogs, we don't have dog parks. So usually when they see another dog, they're very aggressive. They never socialized with other dogs but themselves, and I didn't want to take any risks because I knew that they were trouble. Stella is different. Stella is the dog that I gave a home to when I lived in Belgrade, and she's used to being walked on a leash. She's used to being taken to the park. She's used to playing with other dogs and interacting with other dogs. So she was cool and chill, and she didn't bother her. She didn't want to sleep in my bed. She wanted to sleep on the floor, and then in the middle of the night at 2 a.m. she woke me up because she wanted to cuddle into the bed with me. In the morning I had to take her for a walk so that she can, pee and poop. So I had to put her in my backpack again, and we went to a park in Szabadz, which is around the closest town to us, to teach her how to walk on a leash. She wouldn't do it. When I would put her on a leash and try to walk her, she would just freeze and she would not move. So I let her off the leash and I just started walking, and I was like, well, okay, you stay there if you want, I am leaving, bye. And then eventually, as I was getting far and far away, she started crying and she would eventually start following me. Then we spent like around 2 hours walking around the park, and eventually she got used to following me normally and walking through the park with me. But when it was time to leave the park and walk down the street, she would freeze again. She wouldn't walk, and I tried to leave her, again, okay, I'm leaving and you stay there if you want. But this time it did not work. I was literally getting so far away from her and she was just standing there completely frozen and completely scared. So eventually I had to go back, pick her up and carry her in my arms. In the evening, I tried repeating the whole process all over again. Letting her off the leash, leaving her, and letting her follow me, and then walking around the park until she's walking completely normally without any fear. And then doing the same thing in the city, in the streets, and it worked. For the first time it worked. She was walking completely normally next to me through the whole town. She was very nice, and when we needed to cross the street and I say stop, she would stop and listen to me, and everything went very well. The next day I was supposed to give her to the new owners, and I went to the city 2 hours earlier. I wanted to spend as much time as possible in the park playing with her and cuddling her. We went to grab cookies with peanuts that looked just like her. And eventually, once again, I had to carry her in my arms because she wouldn't walk on her own. So we sat there and we waited for the new owners to come and pick her up. They were coming from Belgrade and they were coming by car, and I was just not ready to let her go, but I had to. When they came, I was not ready to let her go. If you've seen my last video, then you know that in May I have been recovering from being just completely ran over by a very heavy episode of depression in April, and I was just getting myself back together. So maybe I was experiencing this whole process a lot more emotionally and a lot more intensely than I usually would, and I felt just awful. After I gave her, I went back to my house and spent the whole day in my bed crying. This whole love affair of getting up in the morning, riding my bike for 10 kilometers to go see her, bringing her food, calling her jumping out of the bushes, then having to leave her and crying intensely as I'm leaving her and trying to scare her off. It was all over. And I felt great sadness, but I also felt a big relief. I found a home for her, and she's never gonna see that forest ever again. The new owners are wonderful. The guy who drove to Shabbat to pick her up and who was taking care of her until the owner came back from Austria is a great guy who had a lot of patience with her and her boycotting of the leash. He actually has a summer cottage outside of Belgrade, and she spent 2 weeks there just being loved and cuddled and worshipped like the queen that she is. The girl who's the actual owner came back to Serbia a week ago. She is a wonderful girl who already has another dog and a cat. She posted a photo to her Instagram stories saying that the cat will have to get used to the fact that he can't sleep wherever he wants anymore because soon he's gonna have to fight for his favorite chair with a dog called Sunčica. Both me and the guy who's taking care of her until the owner came back from Austria responded to the stories at the same time. Sunčica doesn't need to fight anybody, she just seduces you with those big, beautiful brown eyes. If you've enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and leave a comment. If you want to see more, make sure to subscribe to my channel and click the notification bell. If you would like to support my work, you can follow me on Patreon, or if you want to make a one-time donation, you can do that via PayPal. And if you want to stay connected with me, make sure to follow me on all of my social media. Take care of yourselves, and I will see you very, very soon.